And then on top of that, you've got your emotional needs. So everything gets filtered through. We all have needs that need to be met, which are all listed in here. They're not all listed, but a selection of the main areas. And problems often arise when a need is either overmet, undermet, or inappropriately met. So just taking the first one, need to give or receive attention. If someone has no attention, they go out of their way to crave it and become a little bit of a problem. You get this with teenagers or with kids quite a lot, especially with busy parents, that they go out of their way craving attention because they're not getting the attention, and then that just leads to actually, they normally get the blame for it, but actually it's a bit like with medication, that if you take high doses of medication, say painkiller, if you then stop taking it, you get excruciating pain, because the flip side of the medication is normally the withdrawal symptoms are the exact opposite. So alcohol, if you drink heavily, it slows your heart down, it does all these things, but when you stop drinking, your heart thumps away and you can actually die from it. So the same happens obviously with things like our emotional needs, that if you don't get attention, so to the extent that it's an issue, because obviously every now and then not getting, like having a day where you don't get a bit of attention isn't, you might crave it a little bit in the evening or something, but it's not a huge issue. But if it's your life is you just don't get enough attention your whole childhood, then you're very likely to hit adulthood where you're craving attention from everyone all the time, and whatever caused it, the fact is that needs to be redressed, needs to be somehow normalised again. Likewise, the other way, if you get too much attention, you can then end up pushing everything away. So it gets to adulthood and you push everything away. There are always exceptions, so there'll always be someone that gets too much attention, and they learn the pattern of getting too much attention, so now they want too much attention, because that's the pattern they've learned. So it does depend how this is sort of a mix of how the pattern matching part of your brain works with how you just naturally think, so with what these are. So if you naturally end up falling, it's a bit like a lot of people that have been abused become abusers, but not everyone that's been abused becomes an abuser. It does depend on how you actually think about things and how you interact with life yourself, based on lots of other factors as well. But it's often something to look at, is what need is either being overmet, undermet, or inappropriately met. So inappropriately met could be give and receive attention, could be somebody gets that attention from, I don't know, say teenage girl gets that attention from 20-something-year-old men because she doesn't get the attention at home, so she wants it somewhere, and they are willing to offer that attention. So it could be that kind of work with a family that was like that. There was a 12-year-old girl, and lots of 20-something-year-old men wanted to take advantage of her in not very nice ways, and she was more than happy to go along with it all because of the fact that that was the only attention she got. It was exciting attention, so it fulfilled needs for stimulation as well. It was attention, and so it was how to help her to not. How it helped her was to get her parents to suggest she did football, which she loved. She loved football, and the parents just never let her go to football. They wanted to stay home and do nothing, instead of thinking, well, if she loves football and that's exciting and you get attention from the others, and if you score, lots of people come rallying around and they throw you in the air and all these other things and hugging you. If she loves that and that gives the same emotional need, gets the same needs met, how about, and I said to the parents, how about you, instead of, you say she's got that interest, how about you actually let her have that interest, rather than just say she's got that interest but we'd rather stay home watching TV, and what she does is up to her. And so when they eventually accepted, you know what, we don't want our 12-year-old daughter with lots of 20-something-year-old men sleeping around and doing things she shouldn't be doing. She is at a lot of risk. We want her to be safe. When they were convinced of that and convinced that it was worth doing something about it, then they were willing. They started her in a football club and they got her into that. And they never said stop hanging around that they had done beforehand. Mm-hmm. But from that, they never said stop hanging around with those 20-something-year-old men. Stop going out and do this. Stop doing that. They just left it at, why don't we, I've booked you into the football club, why don't you come along to the football club and do this? So they got her needs met appropriately elsewhere, meaning that she didn't need to keep getting them met inappropriately. And like most things, once you're offered a better choice, of getting things met that actually matches more perhaps with your core values and all these other things, you generally, sometimes you feel like you don't have a choice, even if you do have a choice, like with domestic abuse incidents and things, you sort of have a choice that you can leave, but you don't feel you do, so you then stay. But yeah, so she started playing football, and girls football, and loved it, and got lots of attention there, and parents would come down and they'd cheer her on and stuff, and once all that was happening, she had no need to go and do the other stuff. So they never had, again, it's that whole, obviously how I prefer to work is that Ericksonian thing of don't necessarily go telling someone not to do something, instead figure out how you can get them to be doing something better for them without having to say don't do that, because as soon as you say don't, they do, okay then. So as soon as you start trying to stop someone, it's like, don't climb on the furniture. Climb on the furniture, okay. Or don't run across the playground, and kids stop, pause, think, and then run, and carry on. And so as soon as you say don't, it instantly means you're giving them permission to do it, never mind how much you're trying to say no. When my best friend became a parent, he said that the first lesson he learnt was that every lesson he knew went out the window once he had kids. He knew never say don't, never say any negatives as far as possible. If they climb on the sofa, you say sit down, or you say stand on the floor. You don't say don't climb on the sofa. So the second he had kids, he said, don't climb on the sofa. He said he said he's done therapy and everything. He said there's this inbuilt thing that means you say the wrong thing, even though you knew it all beforehand. The second you see a child doing something wrong, you say the wrong thing. So I don't know why, but that was his experience. So with emotional, and as a therapist, hopefully you don't fall into that trap because you're not emotionally connected to everyone in quite the same way. But yeah, so if something's overmet, undermet, or not met at all, it will probably be close to the heart of the problem. So a lot of the emotions that crop up and a lot of the problems that crop up, not only is there pattern matching going on, but if they're being maintained, they probably meet a need in some way, or have some link with the emotional needs. So it could be that as when you review what's written down in relation to what you've already written, you'll probably see that there's things like getting attention by standing outside and socialising, or getting a sense of excitement or a sense of relaxation and relief from something, or there's normally something that you're trying to achieve, and normally that's an emotional need that's trying to be achieved, and it just happens that you're going about it in an unhealthy way. The advantage of this from a therapy point of view is it does mean you can actually approach things without approaching them directly. So you can, as I've just mentioned, have someone do something completely different because you work out what needs that their problem meets, and so you think, is there something they can tell me in their life that perhaps they don't do anymore but they used to love, or whatever. So when you're doing your information gathering, that if they just did that, they wouldn't have a need to do the problem that they're doing. And so if you can work something like that out, it gives you a much easier way in. It doesn't mean they're guaranteed to do it, but it's a better, it gives you a much higher chance that they're going to do something because it's something they like doing already. It's something that's positive for them, and it meets their needs, and it meets the needs that you're trying to get replaced from something else. So what we've got are things like obviously giving and receiving attention, mind-body connection. So that's things like obviously stress can cause physical illnesses, but likewise physical illnesses can cause stress. So it's saying it's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Your mind influences your body influences your mind. If you sit there slouched all the time, you start to feel a bit more low. It's not normally particularly noticeable, but if you scale someone, say 0 to 10, how happy are you feeling? 0 being really not happy at all, 10 being really, really very happy, and people slouch when they answer, they generally give lower scores than when they sort of sit up straight. When people smile, even artificially, so like the pen experiment where you put a pen in that way or that way, if they put it in that way, so it fakes a smile because they have to try and keep their lips off the pen, then they end up reporting that they're happier, even though they don't necessarily realise that it's manipulated them just by making a smile. Whereas if they go like that because they're holding their hand that way, then they report that they're more miserable, even though again they don't normally realise consciously that they've done that. But when you scale them, you can see that consistently people report higher or lower. So all these things are useful bits of information to know, because obviously they're things that you can use in therapy. You can
It's been learned this to me about the depression.
Yeah. So you've got all these things that are really useful in therapy to know, because they're subtle things, but grouped together, if you can get people to do more of them. So when people realise, also when you smile a bit more, it makes you happier, even though it's a physical thing. So even if you feel bad, the act of intentionally smiling is going to make you start to feel happier, even though you won't notice it at first. It's something that comes from within you, it's not something like forced on you. So you've got things like having, and obviously it's been talked about a lot, lack of sleep lowers the immune system is obviously another one. It can also impair cognitive function and things like that, and likewise having a low immune system can affect your sleep, or having high body temperature can affect your sleep. So it all sort of cycles around. Having purpose and goals, so if you don't have any meaning in your life, again that causes huge problems, and people struggle with life if they don't have meaning. You notice that I think a lot of people, especially people that lose their jobs and things, can often reach a point of thinking, I don't know what, that was my life. I haven't planned beyond that, so I don't know what the next step is, and then that's that can sometimes be something that needs addressing. And it's not like, it sort of may sound like it, but it's not like these are huge things. It's not like purpose and goals means you've got to have some big grand ambition to save the world, or it literally can be getting through that day for something about that day. That it could be I can't wait until dinner tonight, or but that's a purpose and a goal. It's something to do. It's or I can't wait to see my wife, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be I want to change the world, I want to start this massive giant company, or it can be small things. In fact, people in Vietnam, when there was prisoners of war, a lot of them became drug addicts at the time, and a lot of them came back and stopped being drug addicts. But the US were panicking, thinking they were going to come back as drug addicts, because it was like cocaine or something, heroin or something they were taking. So it was something really not expected to be easy to come off of, especially without help. So they were thinking, this is going to be a huge task for us. We've got all these people coming back, and they're all going to be on drugs, and it's all going to be a nightmare. And what they found was that they didn't. They came back, and when they were back in normal society, as it were, apart from the ones that had suffered post-traumatic stress disorder from their experiences and things, the others, within a very short space of time, just carried on with life. And it was like, well, yeah, but I get my needs met here. And so that was something, meeting their needs in one situation. It wasn't something they needed. So even something quite hard wasn't something they needed in another situation. It was something they could do without. So they thought, well, I have family around me, I have friends around me. So those that had people around them or had their needs met here didn't come back with the problems that the American government assumed they were going to come back with, because the American government knows that people that do those problems over here or over in countries as they are, where they live in the country and then they have those problems, normally struggle to get off those drugs. And the difference was, these people weren't people that normally would have taken those drugs. These were people that took them because they needed a replacement in that zone. They didn't need that replacement in their own country. So it was a very specific thing. It wasn't like the Americans were thinking it was going to be, which was, oh my god, drug addicts are all drug addicts. That's not true. In the same way that some people can quit smoking and literally they'll decide to quit and they won't get any cravings or anything, because there's something about them and their mentality at that point of quitting that means that I just quit. I decided today I was going to stop smoking. I stopped. Someone else will have this enormous fight and they'll really struggle, and they'll get really sort of, they'll put on weight, or they'll start shaking, or they'll get really angry with everyone, or smoking's just smoking. It's just how they're reacting to it is based on perhaps the type of person, what needs were being met, is there anything else meeting those needs in any other kind of way. So these are all the sort of things. The challenge, what you'll find over the next today and the next few days is the amount of stuff you're going to be having to look for when you're and listen out for when you're communicating with the client. So not only do you already have to look for the patterns rather than getting drawn into what they're saying, but you now have to look out for their emotional needs and see what needs are being met. Obviously some people like to just write things down, so I don't often write much down if I'm sat opposite a client, because anytime my eyes lower down to something, I'm not looking at something, which is the client. That's just my view, but I can understand that someone in training might think, you know what, I want some prompts. I want to write down SET. I want to write down a list of emotional needs, and I want to be able to go through thinking, have I seen that? Have I seen that? Have I heard that? Whatever. And I want to go through to start with in this nice, easy process, and I want to see this, and I want to do it in this way. And that, yeah, it's fine. It just, you will miss stuff whilst you're doing that. Every time you look down, you will miss something going on in front of you. But that doesn't mean that you do any worse. It just, it's learning. You can't juggle every ball all at once, and what you're missing out there, you're gaining by having identified key bits down here. So if you've identified that the emotional need missing is they don't feel understood or emotionally connected to others, and that's what you've identified by the way they've talked about, I just have a rubbish family life, I just, I don't get on with anyone, myself and my son have this really bad relationship, whatever it is, you identify that, right, I can just mark that that's an issue. So you can then explore, when do you feel that, or what would it look like if you did have that sort of, whatever, using their kind of words, so whatever they've said, when you do have that kind of good relationship with others, do you have that with anyone, like friends, family, other family members, work colleagues, anything like that? And they tell you, well, with that one person, there's normally someone, there's not always, but if you can find someone, then they might say, oh, that one person, I have a really good relationship with them, it's brilliant, I feel really connected to them. The connected part includes things like religions, groups, things like that, so it sort of ties in with some of the others, like having a sense of status in a social group and stuff. That one way to feel connected is obviously that you can join a group, you can join a religion, you can go along to whatever it happens to be, some club, or have a certain role in society, and that just makes you feel connected in that situation. And sometimes we're not very good at transferring skills by choice. If it hasn't happened instinctively, we're not very good at transferring it by choice all the time. So it could be that at work you're this incredibly confident person who's able to be assertive with customers when you need to be, who's able to do this, that and the other, and have this specific role. And then there's your home life, where you think, I want to cower in a corner, keep myself out of the way, and don't want to cause a fuss anywhere. And it's, well, if you can do it there, you can do it here. The question is, how do you link the two? And obviously we do cover that, but not just yet. So sometimes it comes into that as being the question, how do you link somewhere where they are getting the need met? Obviously one way of doing it is you can get them to do more of the thing, if it's appropriate, more of the thing that gets the need met. But if it genuinely needs transferring, so they need to, say they're really good with the way they do attention in a work setting, it might be that you have to transfer how they do that into a normal setting. You okay now?
Yeah, I am now, yeah. There's been a bit of dust or something. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so you have to transfer it to how they do it perhaps in another setting, and so it is about how you look for all this.
I mean, this is a case I've not read, but I will read it tonight.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
Well, they all are. But, he only had a brief moment. He was lecturing in Milwaukee. He only had a brief moment to pop in and see this woman who someone had said, "Oh, can you pop in on my auntie? She's really depressed. She lives on her own. Curtains drawn, doesn't see anyone or anything. Will you pop in? See her. I know you can't stop and do therapy. I know you can't do loads of sessions because you've got to, you're lecturing and stuff, and you're just there briefly. But can you pop in?" So he pops in, and sees this woman and sees that she's got these flowers, and she loves these flowers, and she's tending to these flowers and growing them brilliantly. And he says, it's a shame to waste that talent. You've got this talent for growing these plants, and you're the only one that sees them. So he said, it'd be really nice if, whenever you see in the paper that there's been a birth, just get a cutting, plant it up, and give that plant to the family to say, congratulations on the birth. Whenever you see there's been a death, condolences for your loss, etc. Here's a plant. Whenever you see there's a marriage, congratulations on your wedding, etc. And just give a plant. Just do that, and that was his therapy. And then when she died decades later, there was a tribute saying the African violet queen of Milwaukee has died, loved by everyone.
Wow.
And it was just, all he did was say, give people plants.
Yeah.
But it met her needs. It got her to socialise, got her to mix with people, gave her a sense of status, gave her something she was good at, that this is my skill, this is my thing. So if you just take that one thing, she was giving and receiving attention much better. So she was actually interacting with other people. She was getting out in the sunlight, so probably helping her mind-body connection. Mm-hmm. She had a purpose now, and had goals that, I've got to read the paper every day, I've got to see who's been born, who's died, who's got married, and I've got to go and then track those people down and give these flowers, and got to actually tend to the flowers and cut them and get them sorted to give them. She ended up belonging to the wider community, because now she's all of a sudden going and joining in with the rest of the community and interacting with them. She was taking control of something herself, so she probably had that. She was doing something for herself. Don't know if it affected the sense of security. She definitely had status in the end.
I think that would affect your sense of security. If you felt alone, then you're not going to feel secure. But having status in the community,
just think less about yourself and more about the others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And definitely had been told about her competence and how good she was. So she had the competence and achievement. She was doing this and sticking at it, and did it for decades. It wasn't just a brief thing that she did. She did it for decades and was loved by everyone. And she, I assume, ended up feeling emotionally connected to others.
The minute he had met all
so he met
possible.
She probably had virtually none of them appropriately met, and in one intervention he met all of those needs, and obviously helped her to lead a healthier and happier life. In fact, that's another thing you can do. You can easily go through things like Erickson cases and just think, or any other cases, and think, right, how would you translate that across the needs? What was missing? What did the solution achieve? How did it actually be? How was it helpful? And obviously we do have, I didn't remember that I wrote it down, the smoking in socialising situations down there as well. But so it's looking for inappropriately met needs, over met needs, and under met needs. And obviously how the needs were met in the past. So if something's historically been met in a certain bad way, and they've fallen into that pattern of, this is how I get this need met, like abusive relationships, for example, and naturally falling into abusive relationships over and over and over and over again, completely unconsciously. You get some people that don't even realise it, and they say, I always just end up with the bad guy. And they never set out to do that. They don't realise they do that, yet they genuinely do always end up with the bad guy. Never mind how good the guy looks, somehow there's something they know about that guy that you don't ever realise, some subtle cue that they can pick up on or something.
Could it also be that they did get with a decent guy, but their needs wasn't being met, so they let him go, and then the next guy that came along wasn't so decent?
It could be, but it's fairly frequent that you get some people that just naturally fall from one bad guy to another and somehow pick out that one cue that they wouldn't even, if you said to them, what is it about them that lets you know that they're the right one, because whatever that is probably the cue that all of these bad people have in common, they probably won't identify it. So if we stop briefly for a break, and then we'll do innate skills and abilities.
Super.